Wagwan, welcome back. It's me, Aaron, the Bougie Jamaican. Remember, if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe. You know, our goal here is to teach people about wine, and if you want to go from novice to bougie as fuck, if you want to be pretentious like that. So today I got one of my favorite people. Actually, this is a woman that got me into wine, and the reason why I'm actually doing this is because of her. And I have learned so much from her, and I brought her in today because she is an expert, especially with the topic that we're going on today, and that's champagne. And I was like, you know, who could be the best person for this? And I was like, Karen, that's it, Karen Crippen, one of the sommeliers over at Co-op Wine and Spirits. And you know what? I appreciate it. You've given me so much knowledge and information and a passion for this now. You're like family sometimes.
Yeah, so. I am family.
You are family. Yes, you are. So yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, go ahead and we'll get into our little topic of champagne today.
Sounds good. Well, like Aaron said, I'm Karen Crippen. I have been in the industry now for about 10 years, and I got my master's in champagne from the Wine Scholar Guild about 4 years ago, and my love of bubbles continues to grow, and I'm really excited to be discussing one of my favorite topics today. So there's always a reason to celebrate, and I don't think we look for champagne enough on a daily basis, but there's enough options out there to truly make it user-friendly and exciting to enjoy.
That's awesome. So let's get into this.
Okay.
So what exactly are we going to go over? Should we go over some glassware first?
No, I think
go over some of the history of champagne.
Let's go over glassware, and we're going to open up the bottle, I think,
Perfect.
and talk about different things. But one thing to note when people are coming in to see me for something to have with bubbles, often it is a blanket statement that they want champagne. So with champagne, one thing to be noted is that region and the name is actually protected. It has more lawyers than Nike and Apple put together. Yeah, so basically when you're talking about champagne, it actually is specifically the region of Champagne in northern France. And there's so much history that goes on there. There's been more wars that have fought through that land, and champagne houses that have made their way through all of those wars that really make this area special. Now, some people will say that Dom Perignon was the one who invented champagne. However, there are many other speculations out there that maybe the bubbles actually occurred on purpose in Cava, or in Spain, so the region, that makes Cava, and also Limoux, which is also in France as well. So we do have the monks to thank and all of that, but there's so many other areas that might have developed it. But what Dom Perignon did was understand the blending of the grapes actually made it special and could change the actual profile of the actual wine. Although he is known for his champagne, he was known for actually breaking down the different batches that were brought in by the people who were in that area for protection. So it was like a tax they had to pay. Really? So instead of paying tax, they paid with grapes. And he said, well, you brought me great grapes, and you brought me a different style of grapes. And then he learned how to blend them together to make the ideal cuvee.
That's crazy. That's actually awesome. That's some history I didn't even know about.
Fantastic.
I know. So let's talk about some of this glassware we got here.
Okay, so, sticking with history, we have the original kind of style, which is the coupe. So the coupe is actually modeled after Marie Antoinette, actually after her bosom.
Yeah, Marie Antoinette's
bosom. Yeah. So, but then we went to a different style that many of you might have in your home, which is this style right here, the flute. Although it looks pretty and fantastic, and really, if you're enjoying champagne, drink it out of a teacup on any day if you don't have a proper glass. But it's more about the people that you're enjoying it with. Yeah. But getting into the classic, why this one isn't the optimal glass is that we've got bubbles that are in there that are pretty aggressive. And the bubbles are equivalent to 6 ampere of pressure, which is equivalent to a semi-truck tire. So if you can imagine, we'll talk about that more when we're removing the cork. But all those bubbles are doing work for you, and it's very concentrated at the top here because it's very narrow. So all those aromatics are coming up and kind of, you might get a little bit of a pop at your nose of the aromatics. But what I like is this style right here. So this is a new one. I was actually given these by the Bougie house of Champagne. And what I like about this is that it's got a lot of area in here for the aromatics to work, but the top of the brim is actually a little bit wider. So you're able to sip, enjoy, and you're not getting just smashed.
Yeah, it's way wider than the flute.
Yeah. Yeah. So
huge difference. Oh, that's awesome.
Pretty awesome.
Shall we open something?
I think we should. So what we have here is actually the Louis Roederer kind of family, a few selections of what they have to offer. And what people might not know is that Louis Roederer, that house, Champagne house, not only is it family owned, but they made champagne for the Tsar of Russia. So with that, they had to define the bottle, make it super special, and that's where we got Cristal. So it actually was reserved and put into a crystal bottle, and hence today. But the thing is back then it was actually a sweet style of champagne because the Russians love to have their sweet stuff. So what we're having today is called the Blanc de Blanc.
Okay.
And do you know what Blanc de Blanc means?
It's white to white, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
White grapes on white grapes?
White grapes, white wine from white grapes.
Yeah.
Now, although we know about 3 predominant grape varietals, which is Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, which are both red. The white grape is Chardonnay. So those are the 3 that we tend to get. They make up 99% of the blends that are in Champagne. However, there are other permitted grapes that are allowed in that area, such as Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris. So you might get some of that. But yeah, so back in the day, we have different bottles that were exploding in the cellars and things were happening. So thank goodness in London, they actually created, because of what was going on during the wartime, they weren't allowed to burn wood anymore because that was used for ships. So then they started burning coal, which made the glass stronger. So that 6 ampere of pressure created a lot of positivity.
So that's why the bottles are now so thick, and then most of the time you don't hit people over the head with them.
Wise decisions. So then they just developed, they've got corks, and they tried a number of different vessels going through that, but then they developed the cage. So the cage itself doesn't look very pretty, so they would often put silk over the bottle and tie it with silk if it was going off to people that, royalty was pretty much the people that were drinking champagne. So when we're opening up, there's going to be like a little bit of a tap, so they try and help you out there. So we're going to remove that.
So do some houses still sometimes use silk just because?
Not that I've seen. I would love to receive one of those though.
Me too, that would be awesome. I think that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah. So you've got your cage on here, and fun little fact that there is actually 6.5 turns with the actual twist of the cage.
It's 6.5 turns?
6.5 turns. Do you want to try?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so here you go. So yeah, what I like is that you're putting your thumb over the top because we want to keep that cork in there. Because there's
actually 6.5 turns. That's crazy.
And that will want to come out because at 6 amperes of pressure is going like, serve me, and there you go. Yeah. So now you're going to put your thumb underneath here.
Okay.
And lock it down on the cork underneath there.
Like that? Kind of,
yeah. And then, because you can take your cage off, So now when we're moving it, we're actually going to turn the bottle, not the actual cork.
Okay, so is it best to put my finger?
Keep that on top. You want to reserve, you want to save that. So you might want to turn it on an angle. Yeah, there you go for doing proper service. Now, you always want to point it away. Very good. That is a perfect opening.
You may have done it once or twice.
The nice little sigh that it makes is like a woman taking off her shoes at the end of the day. It's like, I got my heels off.
So unlike popular belief, don't shoot it at the ceiling.
Do not. And what you want to do is always turn it away from the people that you like in the room because that cork can go flying across the room as well.
Well, we've all seen that. What about the saber thing? Does that actually work?
Absolutely it does. But what I would have done on that is you actually move the cage up over here.
Okay.
There's other people say no, but anyways, Yeah, little bit of a history on that. But people in the Navy, when they were getting their wine served there, they wanted to be able to open it easily, and so they would use the saber.
Oh.
So what you were doing on that is you want the bottle pretty cold. So you're kind of going to be looking for the softest point on the bottle, and usually there might be a seam or something like that. But you want to just pick one part, and you want to just commit. So you're going to go 1, 2, and then hit it hard, and you want to make sure you hit underneath the lip, and then the top of that will come off. Yeah.
Crazy.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
So how about you do the honors?
About the pouring. What's the proper way to pour? Angle still?
I would do on the angle, yeah. So what we're looking for here is a nice mousse on there, and the bubbles are actually called beading.
Beading? Okay.
Yes.
So beading.
So the Blanc de Blanc was actually aged in the Roder cellars for 5 years on the lees.
Okay.
So the lees are the yeast cells that basically help, convert the different flavors of the wine, but also help make the alcohol as well.
Mm-hmm.
Without yeast, we don't have the ability to make alcohol. Now they can add yeast to it, but it can also be ambient as well.
Okay.
So 5 years, and then they bottle for a minimum of 6 years before it's released to the market.
Okay.
Now, what makes champagne special is the fact that it is done in a process called the traditional method, or method champenoise. And method champenoise means that all the bubbles were created in the bottle. So versus other sparkling wines where they can be injected with CO2, they can be a tank method, but bubbles are like koi. So if we look down here, we can see that they're small and they're very active in these glass. So this glass is fantastic for showing. Yeah, so it's very quick. Now, if you were doing a tank method or infusing carbon dioxide in there, the bubbles would be larger because the bubbles are like koi. They want to be big. The bigger the vessel, the bigger they're going to go.
So bubbles actually are a great indicator of what do they indicate besides like in the bottle, of course, or like I guess tank method.
Yep.
Is that just more what the bubbles kind of represent? Like, because I think I remember during one training, they're always like, oh yeah, just look how big the bubbles are, how concentrated they are together, and how fast and active they are. And I'm like, I don't remember any of it now.
Yeah. You've got it, but all of that, the bigger the bubbles, if this was slower moving and larger, we would be that it's not actually produced in the traditional method.
Okay.
You can only call it method champenoise in Champagne. Everywhere else is the traditional method.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the beating is quite fast. So how about we pick it up and, well, let's cheers to
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
So what we're looking at is that with champagne, I know normal wines you want to be going like this, swirling to get all those aromatics out. The bubbles are actually doing the work for you, so you don't have to. So we're smelling, first of all, to see if it's healthy, because it can have a fault. So it could smell like wet cardboard, dirty gym bag, different things like that. So we want to make sure that it's healthy and that we're going to be able to enjoy it, right? But you notice that those aromatics are just kind of popping into your nose, so it's really lovely. And that nice golden color, that's indicative of a wine that maybe has had a little bit more age, because like fruit, they oxidize over time. So if you cut an apple open on countertop, it actually turns a little bit more brown. So with white wine, as it ages, it actually gets more golden and darker in color. So with 5 years of age before it's bottled, that's natural to have that nice golden color. So that gives us an idea. So you'll notice on the nose, what sets champagne apart or traditional method is the fact that we get a freshness from the fruit and an acidity, but we also get more like toasted notes and brioche and almost like a dough note. And that's because of the time that it's spent on the lees. The lees will actually move that.
Yeastiness to a point.
Absolutely. So that is classic. So this has also got a little bit of like toasted almond on here, but definitely lemon, citrus, acidity. And, it just wants to tell you a story in the glass, basically. So, okay, shall we try it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you notice the little finite bubbles.
That's
good.
That's so good.
Isn't this fantastic?
I know.
So this is the 2009 vintage. And whenever they declare a vintage, or if the actual champagne house declares a vintage, it means that something special happened that year. as opposed to blending from previous vintages. Because, like I said, champagne is cold. So what that means is that the grapes always don't have the opportunity to ripen.
Yeah.
So they'll have reserve wines that they can blend in every year to create a nice, even balance or a house style. But in a vintage year, it means that something special happened that year. And usually it means that it got warmer. The grapes were able to ripen a bit more. And 2009 was one of those vintages. Actually, in the 2000s, we've actually seen a lot of vintage champagne because global warming, it's really real. I was actually there this year for the Canicule, and it was 43 degrees in Champagne. Champagne is never that hot, and that's unbelievable. So it's going to be interesting to see the ripeness level. What that will indicate is how much dosage they're going to add, and dosage means that's the level of sweetness that is going to be in the champagne.
So how do you determine that sweetness part? That's one thing, because as you were saying before, for the Russians, they made it, there's sweet champagnes, right? So how do you add that sweetness or take away from that? Okay,
so taking away, you really can't do. I mean, because they're really not going to manipulate it that much. But adding is when we would add the dosage. So once they remove the lees from the bottle, because remember, it's all happening. We bottled it. We've got the lees in there.
Top,
so that it's not until it actually goes into the bottle that the bubbles are being made. So when it's barrel aging for 5 years or doing whatever, and then it's bottled, basically at that point is when they have the yeast cells in there. They've added in a different type of dosage at the point where it's being disgorged. That's where the yeast cells are being removed. And then they go, okay, so what do I have? They would have known what they had before bottling, but is it a sweeter year? And if it's not, then they don't need to add as much dosage, and that's where they'll add the sugar in there. So if it is a cool year, adding more sugar or to the dosage to it will actually give them the opportunity to adjust that, because otherwise it could be like a super racy acidity that feels like you're getting canker sores or something like that. Like it's just, we've all had wines that are just super high in acidity, and that's just the way that they can control that. Tell me what you're getting out of that. What do you like?
So like you're saying, it's super. I got a lot of acidity, a lot of lemon. I get a little bit of like green apple almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of apple notes behind it, like that yeastiness. It's super fresh. Like I could sit there and I want to just sit there and go outside. I'm looking out your backyard. I'm like, I just want to go sit out there
with our bottle of champagne. Yeah, so like I said, we've got the 3 different styles here. One way you can see right here, speaking to dosage, we've got the Brut Nature. This means that they have added no dosage, sweetness. They haven't adjusted the sweetness.
So it'd be like quite dry then?
Well, it's 2006, so we would actually really just have to go back and look at that vintage. Yeah. What did that vintage, how hot was it? But this one is definitely sweeter than the 06.
Yeah, no, it's like it has quite a bit of sweetness behind it, but it's not overly sweet.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things that, I don't know, you could just sit outside. And one of the reasons why I was like, you know what, we should do champagne now. It's coming into summer. It's spring. Coming into summer. It's nice. It's warm outside. It's just something nice to go outside and drink with.
Absolutely.
And bubbles are one of those things that I don't have that much experience with. I've never really gotten into it. And because these are awesome.
Well, we've converted you. So so this is Louis Roeder, family-owned vineyard, still family-owned because a lot of them aren't. So that's pretty special about it. But I'll show you that little silver thing over there. Yeah. So if you grab the bottle, sometimes not in my family or household with my friends, we may not finish the whole bottle, and it's really difficult to go and put the cork back on. It's literally impossible. Yeah, there you go.
If we can
That's not getting back in the bottle.
That's what she said.
With this, if you put it on the top and then push down and seal it, this will actually keep the bubbles nice and fresh in there. And I've had one in my fridge. I don't know how it happened, but it has happened for up to 2 weeks, and the bubbles, this will pop. This helps me bring it off. But kept the nut bubbles nice and fresh.
So, like, say for instance, having this open for 2 weeks, unlike some other wines where, like a lot of reds or whites, once you open it, it oxidizes it. Yeah. And you can't really drink it. Is that different with champagne then?
This is just, it will evolve. The bubbles will not be as prevalent if the longer you leave it. Yeah. But with this, hopefully we've,
But it won't, like, oxidize to a point where it's like, undrinkable and it tastes
for mine, it hasn't. I've had champagnes that are nice and fresh by doing this. And I mean, with the level of acidity, but the actual bubbles are going to soften. It will continue to evolve. It will continue to change. But the more you drink out of the bottle, the more oxidation you're going to have. So, but with that area up there, it'd be fine. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, because I just learned so much about champagne, and this is amazing, and it's always a pleasure. And there's so much more history and so much more knowledge that goes into this, and honestly, we don't have that much time, and you've put I don't know how many hours to actually know as much as you do, because you are a champagne expert. You did the wine guild. Yeah, it's the
Wine Cellar Guild. Yeah.
Wine Cellar Guild. Yeah, you told me to do it. You're like, go do the champagne.
Yeah,
do it.
it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
I did sign up for it. I didn't end up doing it. I didn't have the time at that moment. I was out working up north, so.
Okay.
I'll have to get back into it, especially because this is one thing, like, it's so much fun once we start getting into all of these and getting into the wines and the champagnes and the sparkling wine and understanding how we actually break it down and somewhat how it's made, but how to be able to enjoy it properly, I think, is one of those things that most people don't understand. Like, I think when we first met, I didn't know anything about wine whatsoever, and you're like, hey, come to a wine tasting, and I was like, oh, I don't really know what I'm tasting. And then we sat there and broke it down. And then from there, I ended up doing I did my WSET 1, 2. I should do my 3. Well, have you finished 4 yet?
I just finished my essay portion of number 4, which I did pass. Thank goodness it was on Romania. Yeah. And that was my Romanian thesis. So I was pretty proud of that.
That's a hard one, I hear.
It is. Then there's still more to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I did a couple sensory courses and a bunch of other things. So you are actually the reason why I am where I am at the moment and have the knowledge to what I have, to the extent that I have. Of course, there's so much more to go in, and this is your life, and we'll get there one day.
You're there.
We'll get there. We'll keep doing it, but until then, you know what? This is awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. And I love seeing you, so.
I love seeing you too.
I know. But yeah, thank you so much. Do you want to say a few words as we leave today?
Drink more champagne, because it wants you to drink it.
No, awesome. Thank you so much. Remember, hit that subscribe, hit that like button. Join us here next week. We got another thing going, so we'll see what it is. All right, cheers.